There we go.
Okay. Marilyn Gallucci's on our board,
Okay.
and she's the one who mentioned the Legacy Scholar Program at a board retreat that my wife attended.
Okay.
And so I met Marilyn a number of times, and our fitness instructors are all from UNE.
Yeah.
So it sounded like something very interesting to get involved in, and we said, you know, why don't we sign up for it and see where it goes? So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So I just have so it's a questionnaire kind of about how your life has been, and it's a little formalized, but we can diverge and
That's
stuff
fine.
like that.
Whatever. Yeah. No, you've got to follow your
Yeah.
script in a sense.
So have you worked with the occupational therapist here or elsewhere before?
I worked with an occupational therapist. When was it? 2007, after having hand surgery.
Oh, okay.
I had
So it's hand therapy.
Dupuytren's contracture, and I was operated on for it. Actually, I've been operated on about 5 times for it. But
Which hand was it?
you can see the
There
finger.
we go. Yes.
Yes, it
Got it.
won't go back. I mean, there's all, and it's
Yeah.
not worth doing it again. It's just too much aggravation. So I worked with her for a number of months afterwards just to get the strength back into the hand, basically.
Yeah. Well, so you do have somewhat of an understanding
Right.
what an
Yep.
occupational
Yep.
therapist does.
Yep.
Okay. So we also do like the overarching, just what's most important to people, trying to get them back
Right.
into their routines of functional.
Right. Be able to figure out essentially when they go back into their environment, what are they going to need to support them in that environment, and yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You should give the speech. So I just we'll start off with a questionnaire. So tell me about your past and present life roles. So for example, as a retiree, a hobbyist, a worker, a parent or grandparent, a caretaker, a volunteer. What is going well and what is challenging in your current role?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I am retired. I am a volunteer and have been for a long period of time. Life is generally going well.
That's good to hear.
Living here sort of, you know.
Not bad. Not
No,
bad.
not bad, no. Having the ocean in front of you and a beach just 10-minute walk from here is certainly very pleasant.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Do you do a lot of hobbies here, or?
Not so much into hobbies as much as volunteering. I'm on committees. I volunteer over at Holbrook on the health center. I do email with residents on Wednesdays. I'm chair of the tours committee here. I'm part of the resident IT help committee. We're a group that helps other residents with their, with their IT problems.
You are very active in the community. I can
Yeah.
barely do one thing.
No, the funniest thing was, you retire and you say, well, I'm going to have all this time. And the answer is you don't.
Yeah.
You wind up filling it up. I mean, even before coming here, I volunteered at a long-term care facility in Lowell, Massachusetts for about 13 years before we moved. So,
Yeah. So would you say that is one of the challenges with being retired, is just having all these commitments? And
I don't know if it's a challenge or if it makes life more interesting.
I like that.
Okay, I wouldn't call it a challenge. When you're working for a living, you're sort of doing the same kind of thing. But when you have the opportunity now of time to broaden out and try other things, I think it's more interesting, not challenging.
Yeah. So right now in your life, you don't really feel like there's any challenges with completing your role, tasks, that sort of stuff.
Nope.
Wonderful. Great. Can you describe a typical day during the week, and how about the weekends?
Well, weekend, sometimes we actually say, thank God it's Friday. A typical day, well, let's see. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is get to the gym by about 6:45 and do our routines that we've had developed by the folks from UNE. And then the summer is a little bit quieter, but on a typical day during the year, we may wind up having a committee meeting. On Wednesdays, I'll be going over to Holbrook to do my volunteering. We also help out over there if there's a function going on here that residents over there want to come over to, we'll help bring them over. We walk. My wife and I walk probably an average of about 8 miles a day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, we walk to the beach every day that we can, all year round, depending upon how safe it is.
Yeah.
If it's really icy or that,
Can you access it just from here? Or do you have
No,
to-
you would, well, there's two ways to get there. There's a trail that goes by the art building, the new
Okay.
building that's over on the end of this wing. And that will take you down through the orchard and then onto, which is still an extension of Piper Road, which goes through to Greenwood.
Okay.
And that's one road up from the beach.
Okay.
So or you can go, as you notice when you come in, there's a left that you can take.
Yeah.
If you walk down that way, you get to the same place.
Interesting.
So it's a 10-minute walk. Some people have walked the rocks at low tide, but that's not something I'm about to do.
No.
No.
Wouldn't advise it.
Yeah, so we walk. If we're not, usually we walk at least 2 to 3 times a day. So we're out and about. Then there's, one thing about living in a place like this is there's always something going on. So we've either got lectures, we've got concerts, we've got trips that we go on. We do drive and dines, we go to museums. As a matter of fact, next Saturday we're going up to the Portland campus to the art museum.
Really?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So a day is, a day can be very filled, or you just may want to sit back if it's a wet, rainy day and just read a book.
So would you say that your weekdays are similar to your weekends? Minus the committee meetings?
Yeah.
Still the
Yeah,
walking?
yeah. Oh yeah, we still will walk, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then, the usual things like going shopping when you need to, and we still buy groceries even though we get a meal here every day, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean, so, yeah.
Wonderful. So, what is satisfying about your daily routines, and what is dissatisfying, if you have anything that's dissatisfying?
I think probably the only dissatisfying thing about any day is if we can't get outside, because we prefer to get out and walk around. Satisfying is probably just having the freedom to do what I want when I want.
Okay. Wonderful. So I'd like to hear more about critical life events that have shaped who you are. What were the events or experiences that most shaped your life?
Most shaped my
It could be
life.
positive, negative.
Okay. Probably one of the biggest events that has shaped my life was being born with only partial use of my left arm.
Okay.
I have Erb's palsy.
Okay.
Because of that, it required me to come up with other ways of doing things that most people would find very easy to do. Um, that, I think, was one of the things that helped me along the way. Probably the other big event in my life was that I hated school.
Okay.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I hated school. I started school early, probably too early, so I was sort of behind myself. I found school very, very stressful, but I had gotten interested in science and wanted to be a scientist, and barely made it through high school, basically nearly flunked out. Did wind up going to prep school, and that got things a little better.
What prep school did you go to?
Newman Prep in Boston.
Okay.
I was going to go into a laboratory technician course at a local hospital, and the pathologist said that I need to go bring my science grades up. So going back to high school was not an option because, as the guidance counselor told my parents and myself, he didn't do that well while he was here. He's not going to do any better. Send him someplace else where they're
That's just
better
bad
teachers.
advice there. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, that's okay, because then there was the other guidance counselor who, before that, told my parents that I was too stupid to go to college. Don't let me even try.
I can't believe you said that.
Yeah. Oh no. She did.
Counselors were saying that.
Yeah, she did.
Ugh.
Anyways, I did go to Newman Prep. I did wind up getting into Northern Essex Community College. Nearly flunked out of there, but I didn't. Somehow, maybe with a little bit of, how shall I put it? My mother was a nurse, and
Okay.
she was a delivery room nurse, and one of her patients, her father was on the board of St. Anselm's College in Manchester, New Hampshire, and my mother mentioned the fact that I would really like to have gone there, but, originally when I applied, they said, no, that's not going to happen. Well, I was supposed to go to either Arizona, to the University of Arizona, I had been accepted, or University of California at Long Beach, and my mother came into the room one night while I was studying and said, do you want to go to St. Anselm's, yes or no? And I said yes, and she said, all right, that's where you're going, and
There you went.
that's where I went.
There is nothing wrong with some good old family
Yes.
connections.
Yeah. It was just because the daughter of of someone on the board, and I made it through St. Anselm. Even made the dean's list once.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Show those high school college
And
counselors.
I was a biology major with a strong chemistry background. Actually, what happened was, because I had gone to Northern Essex and I had an associate's and I wanted to get a bachelor's degree, I wanted to be a biology major, I would have to go back a year because you couldn't complete all of the courses in 2 years. So I said, okay, I'll go back a year, and wound up getting a strong chemistry background and my degree in biology, and then wound up going to Newton Wellesley Hospital School of Medical Technology, where I became a registered medical technologist, and spent the next 18 years as a clinical chemist at Tufts Medical Center in Boston.
That's wonderful. So those are two big things. Do you have any other? Maybe getting married was a big one?
Getting married was a big one. That was later in life. That was a blind date.
Really?
Yep. That was a blind date.
Set up by who?
Huh?
So who was that set up by?
Well, when I was in training at Newton Wellesley, I became very good friends with one of my fellow students, a woman by the name of Carla. And after we left school, I used to wind up traveling with her and another woman. We traveled all over the country together. And she got married, and she was damned if she wasn't going to get me married off. But I used to get on, she lived in Connecticut and still does, and I used to get on a visit. And if we were going out to dinner, she would arrange for me to go out with somebody. I used to go out with the same person all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it just was fine. It was just go
Yeah.
to dinner and whatever.
Yep.
Well, apparently this weekend, this woman wasn't available, so she said, oh, I know this other person, and you can, you know, we can do it. I said, okay, all right. And I didn't want to go, and she didn't want to go, but we wound up going. And the next night we were going out again for dinner, and Carla said, look, it's up to you if you want to invite her. I haven't said anything, but okay, fine. I asked her the next night. We went out. And then I figured, yeah, well, I'll see you when I come back down. And, well, how shall I say it? Next thing you know, I got a very nice note from her saying, you know, I really enjoyed this. I'd like to see you again. And then the trips to Connecticut and the phone calls started. And so my wife wound up before that, but before we married, she wound up the last day on the job breaking her foot. And it was her right foot, so she couldn't drive.
Oh, no.
So this was in the summer. So I said to her, I said, well, I'm going to the beach for 2 weeks. Why don't you come? I mean, you can't do anything. So I think we've only been, well, that would have been August. So it was, met her in May, June, July. So I proposed to her at the beach. But we didn't get married until about 3 years after that.
That's all right.
So,
well, good thing you went on that blind
yeah,
date.
that was, yeah, we've been together ever since. So it's going on
Can't
35
complain,
years.
yeah. That's good. 35 years. Wow.
Yep.
And you have children?
No.
No children? Okay.
No. That's part of the reasons why we're here. Because there is nobody behind us to do what we did for parents and aunts and stuff like that. So we said we have to find some place to make sure each other is taken care of no matter what happens. So
this is the perfect. This
Yeah.
is such
Oh,
a
yeah.
great facility.
Yeah,
I couldn't
it
say
is.
better things about it.
Yep.
That's great. So if you think about your life, what do you consider the time when you were doing best? Tell me about the period and what made it so good. And it can be now if best.
When I was doing the best, well, let's see. Well, while I was in the laboratory, I wound up going back and getting a master's degree at Northeastern. And, you know, it was great. I got the master's and still working in a lab. And then in 76, my father died suddenly. And in 78, I moved back home, back up to Lowell where my mother lived because she wasn't handling things very well. And I wound up being a little bored, so I took a computer class at a local community college.
And this was before you met your wife.
Yeah, this is before I met my wife.
How old were you when your father passed?
It's a good question. Let me, wait a minute, 76. Yeah, where am I here? 8? About 20, 28, 29,
Okay.
somewhere around there. Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing was I got really interested in computers. And started to take computer courses and programming courses, and wound up teaching for this college that I started with. There's an adjunct, and I taught there for 11 years.
Wow.
And in the process, I said we got married, and I was not happy in the lab anymore because I wasn't doing I was more administrative than I was anything else, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. And my wife saw a job opening. She was reading the paper one day and saw a job opening, and it was at the University of, well, it was University of Lowell then. It's now the University of Massachusetts Lowell. In the College of Health Professions for somebody who had a license in a healthcare field, which I did because I was a registered medical technologist, a master's degree, computer background, and teaching experience.
Everything you had.
Yes. And I applied for the job. And I got it.
So that's a huge high.
Yeah. It was a professional tech job to run the computer labs for this College of Health Professions. And I interviewed with the dean, who was quite a character in her own right.
Okay.
Oh yeah, she.
In a good way, or?
Oh yeah, she was. Her name was Eleanor Shalhope, and I come in and I'm to make my first interview with her. And there's another woman who was a nurse, but was also very much involved interested in computers, in the interview. And we're going on, and Eleanor's telling me about the job and that, and she says. And you know, she says, we do whatever is needed to be done here. And if that means sweeping the floor, you sweep the floor. And she said, you know, if you don't like that, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. I never wanted to work for anybody more in my life than I wanted to work for Eleanor Shaw. She was one of the best people I ever worked under.
Wow.
Because she treated her, she would call you at 5 minutes to 8 to see if you were at your desk, and 5 minutes to 5 to make sure you hadn't left early.
She's on top of it.
But she bent over backwards for her people. Seriously, she bent over backwards for her people. She was absolutely, absolutely wonderful. Few of the deans that I had when I was there were great. But that is a whole new area. I spent 14 years in doing that, and became very friendly with the nursing laboratory director, Jackie, who we're still very good friends, her and her husband. And Jackie decided she was going to go get her doctorate. And I started thinking about it. And I had met another person from the Graduate School of Education, who was doing it was a technology-based project for the president's office, and so I went out and had a talk with him. I said, you know, I'm more interested in teaching than I am in building computers or that, and so we discussed it, and he said, why don't you try taking a couple of courses and see what you think? And I said, okay. And I did. I matriculated, and in 2001, I obtained a doctorate in education.
Oh, wow.
Remember, this is the kid who hated school.
Yeah.
All right?
You just needed something to be passionate about. I did the same thing. I struggled with high school a little bit, went to prep school, and that kind of got
so
me.
You understand, yeah. You understand, yeah. And I look back and I say, you know, there were people who gave me a chance. They saw something and they said, let's see where he goes. I'm going to be very frank. I was flunking out of high school. I had failed geometry, I can't tell you how many times, and I was failing again. I was going to not graduate by 1 credit. And the teacher, Victor Luz, asked for the final exams back. And a few days later, he passed them back out. And my grade was changed. And in my yearbook to this day, by his name is written, you owe me part of your diploma. And Victor Luz was still alive when I got my doctorate, and so wasn't the guidance counselor, who said, he's too stupid to go to college.
That just, to me, that blows my mind that someone ever would say that to
Yep.
a kid.
Yep.
Did
Yep.
you look him up?
I unfortunately thought Victor had died prior to that, and didn't find out until well after that he had still been alive, until I did see his obituary. Because otherwise I would have, yeah, because he was in Lowell, and I mean, well retired, but
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, I did get a doctorate.
So that's
Yeah.
quite the accomplishment.
Did decide that I was, still going to continue to do what I was doing, and Eleanor had retired, and unfortunately, Eleanor not only had retired, but she had died. And Janice Stecky was the dean. And interesting, when I first came to the university and the college, and Jan's office was in between where the computer labs were and where I was situated. And her mother was my mother's nursing supervisor at nights at St. John's Hospital.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, it took me a second. I don't know if you
Okay.
could see me visually being
Yeah.
like, mother.
So Jan became the dean, and after I got my doctorate, great,
Yeah.
wonderful. She called me down to the office one day, and she says, I was talking to the chancellor after a meeting. She said, and we were talking about people who had gotten their doctorates, and Jackie had finished and that. And she said, I told him you had gotten a doctorate in education and you were interested in teaching. He wants to see your curriculum vitae. Okay. So I got it down to her and shipped it off, and that was that. And then about 4 weeks later, she calls me down to the office again. She says, Provost just called. You've been appointed to faculty as a strategic hire to develop computer technology classes in healthcare, starting in September of 2001. Okay?
Yep.
So I did that for another 11 years and then retired.
That's great. So what would you say your biggest success in life was through all of?
The biggest success?
Yeah.
Obtaining a doctorate and becoming a professor. They were my two dreams. That I always, as a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor, but not a medical doctor. And I always wanted to be a professor.
And you wanted to do that even when you were not doing well in school?
Yep. School for me was, I think a big part of it was that I went to a parochial school. I was taught by nuns. They were not the best teachers in the world. A lot of stuff did not make sense. When I was studying in the education program, one of the papers we had to read was by a author by the name of Alfred North Whitehead, and one of the things he said was, we filled the head with inert ideas. And so the idea is that, they say teach to the experience of the child. That's not what was being done. So things did not make sense. I didn't understand.
Yeah. I think some people that I've met who are the most incredible teachers pursued that career specifically because their teachers were not. I think that's a common ground that I've found.
Yep.
Is,
And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach. Because I wanted to be able to teach not just this rote memory crap that meant nothing, but to be able to help people understand. I spent my whole life with analogies and metaphors and everything else to try and get people to understand computers.
Yeah.
And and how computers relate to healthcare. So
are you on a faculty or alumni committee still, or?
I'm alumni of the university, and I'm a professor emeritus. So I have emeritus status at the university.
That's great. And for that, do you have to go back sometimes? Or
No, but I can go back, and I will go back hopefully in the spring of next year, because the Graduate School of Education, when I was in it, was out in a former reform school in Lowell. Yeah, the property was donated to the state, to the university, by Ann Wang, who was the founder of Wang Computers way back in the 70s. It used to be the Lowell Reform School. The buildings were pretty bad, but that's all right. But the original, the University of Massachusetts Lowell was originally comprised of two separate schools. One was Lowell Technological Institute, which was founded during the heyday of Lowell's Industrial Revolution to do textile science, and the Lowell Normal School, which was the school that taught teachers back in the 1800s.
Okay.
They merged to become U Lowell, and then eventually became the University of Massachusetts Lowell in 1992. The Lowell Normal School, which was Coburn Hall, is still on South Campus. The university is divided by a river, so there's one side is North Campus, which is mostly where the engineering and sciences are, and the other side is South Campus, which was the social sciences, if you will, okay? Coburn is being renovated extensively, and in 2020 will now be dedicated back as the College of Education. So it's going back to its original roots, and so I'm going to plan on going back. It's also the 125th anniversary of the founding of, well, the two schools, which are now UMass Lowell, so it's 125 years. So yes, I'm going back for that. Yeah.
Well, now that we've gone over all the high points,
okay,
we're going to take the turn. And if you think about your life, what do you consider the time when you weren't doing well and felt unsuccessful? Tell me about this period and what made it so difficult.
Basically, school. School was my most difficult.
In high school?
High school, grammar school. I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown during grammar school. And the thing was that I was never held back. They would keep promoting me, and probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me would have been to be held back a year. But didn't happen, and then high school wasn't any better. I never learned how to actually study until much later. When I got to Newman Prep, I was taking algebra, which I hadn't done well in either. And I had this wonderful person. He was an older gentleman, but he would not move on to the next thing until every person in that class understood the current concept. I mean, it was incredible. When I took geometry, I had to go to a really young guy. He was fascinating. You know, it was like, oh, okay, you know, things were like night and day.
Yeah.
But during grammar school and high school, it was not pleasant, okay? I mean, it was really not a pleasant time of my life. It was the most unpleasant time of my life.
Yeah, just because you felt like you were behind everybody else, and the stress of it.
Yeah. And also feeling that, you know, what was I going to do? You know, there were a lot of, if you come down to it, there were a lot of things that I wasn't going to be able to accomplish with not having full use of both arms. So, you know, I wanted to go to college, even though I hated school.
Yeah.
I hated it not because I didn't want to learn, it was because it was so difficult. Let's put it that way.
And nobody was meeting you at your level?
No.
Yeah, the teachers really make a difference. They really, really do. Let's see. Oh, Here we have some interactive. Can you draw or describe the ups and downs of your life below? So we already did the description part. So.
0.
We can start later if you want.
No, I mean, well, if you think about it, the downs would have been probably 0.
To like 15, I would say, right?
Yeah, to about there, and then things started going,
It's your mom got you in.
yeah, up, and I'd say they're still going up. I mean, I'm not up to 80, but let's stop about here, okay?
Yeah, you'll get there.
I'll get there.
We'll
Yeah.
get there.
I mean, they're not, you know, I mean, even living here is an up. It's not a down.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
It's an
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. I mean, what were things where there
Were there bumps along
bumps
the way?
Yeah, there probably were, but
So-
you know what? They didn't make any. They didn't matter. I mean, they didn't. You know.
You got over them.
You got
You
over, I
moved
mean,
on.
there were little things. You know,
Yeah.
little things that you don't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
And what about your mom? Was that when she passed?
My mother was 92, and she wound up in a nursing home the last 2 years of her life, which was probably the best for her. Let's say I was prepared for it. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Different from when your father.
it was different from my father because he was, I mean, it was even totally worse. My father was accidentally killed on the job Christmas Eve.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? So it destroyed Christmas effectively for, it was never the same, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And with him, I never got a chance to say goodbye. With
Yeah.
my mother, at least, I got the chance to say, you know, to tell her it was okay and she could go on and, you know, as my mother was very religious, and as I told her, he's been waiting a long time for you to come, and so on and so forth. So
That stays with you. Do you still feel like Christmases are hard or?
no, I don't really. Yeah, with only the two of us, it's not that big a deal. I mean, you know, the worst part, like we say, is we buy each other. I mean, we buy whatever we want. So
Yeah.
you know.
Hard to think of a gift when
Yeah, right.
you
Yeah,
can go out and get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just get whatever you want.
Yeah. And there's not the stress of having to keep
Right.
the Santa Claus thing alive.
Yeah,
for
right,
kids.
yeah.
Oh, God. My parents struggled so hard with that, especially for the Easter Bunny.
Mhm.
My brother found out because he heard my mom and dad talking, say, "Oh my God, the peeps have mold on them." So then he realized that they're the ones that made the baskets. It was a big deal.
Yep.
So it's a problem.
Easter Bunny's gone
Yeah,
over here.
yeah, yeah. So please share, what would you like to be doing a month from now? Or are you happy with your routine?
Yep.
Any improvement?
What I'm doing right now is fine.
Yeah. Okay. What about a year from now?
I'm sorry.
What about a year from now?
Probably the same thing I'm doing right now. We'll probably do a trip somewhere. We do that periodically, you know, go off and just, as we say, get off the reservation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you do kind of states nearby, or do you go out of the country? or-
No, mostly we've been doing states nearby. A couple of things we've done that we really enjoyed was we've done riverboat cruises in on the Mississippi, on the Ohio River. These are actual. One of them, the one on the Mississippi, is an actual steamboat. Same thing that Mark Twain did in
Yeah.
his life on the Mississippi. Yep. My wife worked for the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. Even though she was in Massachusetts. They had a group in Massachusetts, but she wound up going out there a lot. I've never been. So we're talking about maybe doing a trip to Rochester so I can see the Mayo Clinic. It's a very impressive institution.
Yes. I've heard of it.
Yes.
So it sounds like work has been pretty significant in
Mhm.
your life. That's really what's driven you
hmm
to success. And we talked about your roles, but your role as a husband, are there certain things that are you in charge of finances or meal prep or shopping, or do you split those down the menu? But down the
I probably handle most of the finances, not that my wife can't, it's just that I seem to be the one who, schedules the bill. I mean, we do most of it online anyway, so, she cooks, I wash dishes. We share, housework is not the same anymore because we get housekeeping once a week. Yeah. So it's not quite the same, but,
this is the time of the life.
Yeah, I mean, we, I may be folding the washer, she may be folding the, whatever.
Share responsibility.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Did you guys ever have any animals?
Not now. No. We did have a dog for a number of years, a rescue that we found. Just a little aside, but when we got married, we were living, my mother had a two-family house in Lowell, and that's where we were living because, as I said, when I met Fran, she had no job, but she had a house. I had a job, and was living with my mother. But anyways, so every year my mother would go out to see her niece in California for a few months during the winter. So one year she's gone, and she calls up and she says, I'm coming back, and I says, oh good, you'll get to meet Misty. She says, who's Misty? And I said, our dog. Okay. So we had gone to the Humane Society and decided we're going to get a dog. And we're looking around, and here's this bigger dog, Collie Shepherd, in the back of the cage, just terrible look on her face. I mean, really pathetic. So, don't know anything about it. 1.5-year-old female. Okay. So Fran says, I'll go out and talk to them. Why don't you go in? So I go in, the dog's there, So Fran comes back and says, they said we can take, put the lead on her and take her out and just see how she gets along with people. So, okay, so, come on. So she comes out of the cage. The ears go up. The tail goes up. And out we go. So we get into the lobby and we sit down, and the dog climbs up in a chair beside of us and sits down, and we said, okay, that's it. She's coming home. She was a Shepherd Collie mix. Her name was Misty. She was the most intelligent dog I have ever met in my entire life. She was wonderful. So we had her for a long time, and then she lost, which a lot of them do, she lost the use of her hips.
Hip dysplasia.
Yeah, so we unfortunately, and then we just, at that point, which is also goes along with it, we had been caring for somebody for at least the first 30 years of our marriage. If it wasn't my parents, it was Fran's parents who were in Florida, which made it even more difficult. I was sole responsible for an aunt who lived right at the top of the street from us. So after Misty died and my mother was going into the nursing home, we decided that getting another dog wouldn't, right now we had a little bit more freedom, so we decided to not get another animal, so we never did. But we've got more dogs here than we care to think about to take care of. Oh, there's over 40 dogs here. Never go any place without them.
That's great.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of dogs. I'm surprised you haven't seen one yet today. Usually they're out and about. Oh yeah, there's a lot of dogs here.
So you like dogs?
Yeah.
Great. Dog treat.
Of course, the second time after the dog, my mother went away. We bought a house, and my mother never went away again. But what can I say?
Yeah, I mean, Are there any other tidbits, anything you can think of? Kind of gives me an in-look to what's important to you. The life goals.
Well, the other thing was that we're in Maine primarily because we had a camp in Maine for over 40 years up in Alna,
Where's that?
outside of Wiscasset. It's about 15 miles inland from Wiscasset, Alna Whitefield.
Did you go to the Red Eats a lot? The
No.
lobster roll? No?
No, never ate at Red. Know of it, never ate there. Couldn't be bothered standing in line.
Right? It's such a traffic jam spot,
is.
too.
Yeah,
it's
it
just a
is.
funnel.
Yep. No, back in 1976, actually before my father passed, a friend of mine and another fellow and I bought 60 acres of wooded land up there. And
That's a good investment.
We bought a trailer and we had a road put in because there was no road, and built a cabin and had a pond put in, and it was very rustic. We used solar power and rainwater collection, but we spent a lot of years. My wife didn't go up as much, but it was mostly the guys,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a guy's trip.
Yeah, yeah. So we spent a lot of time up there, and that was what sort of brought us. And then we also spent most of our vacations every year in Ogunquit. Yeah, we'd spend a week or so in Ogunquit every year.
You guys are some Mainers.
Yeah. Never stopped in the middle here. Never stopped in this part,
Yeah.
because we'd either go
North or
blowing
south,
through heading
yeah.
north, but so I didn't even know anything about Scarborough except
Yeah.
that used to see the sign for Scarborough Downs, and it was, exit 42 used to be closed during, it was seasonal, basically.
Yeah.
It was closed during the winter, so, yeah.
Is there an active community of friends that you have here?
Oh, yeah, we have,
mostly-
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of people. It's surprising how, and it is a community, and I think that this is, the benefit of places like this is the society. Because, as we saw it with our own parents, they were in the house, didn't want to leave, but they were totally isolated. They couldn't get out until somebody came. They would sit there and look at the walls. My mother was profoundly deaf, so TV was useless.
Yeah.
So this, and we could see the change when they got into a nursing home or, into a facility where all of a sudden there was society and there were things to do and there were people around.
That mental stimulation is so
Yes,
important.
yes.
Yep.
So, that's a big part of what places like this really mean, you
Yeah.
know.
They're phenomenal. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I guess basically I know you're occupational therapy, but what's the purpose of the project?
This project. So we are working on our interviewing skills.
Okay.
Being comfortable around people that we haven't met before, because we've done this assignment actually with hired actors, and so we go into a sim lab, and they'll give them different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give them. Sometimes they have a mental illness. Sometimes they have a physical aspect, or struggling with depression, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of gone around about to prepare us for this.
It's very much what they also do with medical students.
Yes, exactly.
And bringing in actors who come in presenting with
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah, our nephew he's a chief resident now at Southampton Hospital.
Yeah.
And he was in medical school. He would tell us about the bringing in actors that would present with different symptoms or different problems,
Yeah.
and then they would have to.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So
okay.
it's not. So this is one of my favorite classes, because I get to interact with people, and
Mhm.
we have to do the sim labs for kinesiology, and that's more the medical based model. So we're looking at range of motion,
Yep.
and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So these ones are more fun for me because I get
Okay.
to.
Well, you will be doing this in
Yeah.
your profession, because you're
Exactly.
going to have to be interacting with people with a multitude in a multitude of different capacities and abilities and everything else. So
Yeah.
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 Okay. No, I think, you know, a lot of the stuff we've seen, even the program they have where they take medical students and they stick them into like a nursing home, or they stick them into a, you know, one of them now is at the veterans home, and they have to act as a, say, an 88-year-old with all kinds of problems and be treated just as if, so they get